Before we start tonight's case, I want you to remember one thing. Some hauntings don't announce themselves with slammed doors, moving objects, or the classic footsteps in the hallway. Some begin in ways so small, so ordinary, that you don't even realize something is wrong until it's far too late. Tonight's investigation comes from rural Pennsylvania, a quiet, heavily wooded region about 40 minutes outside Scranton. It involves a family that fled their home in the winter of 2019, leaving behind every personal belonging they owned. No police report ever used the word paranormal, and no official statement ever acknowledged anything unusual. But the digital evidence, the neighbor accounts, and the psychological aftermath suggest something far stranger was happening. This is what locals now call the Coldwater Township surveillance incident. Our story begins on December 4th, 2019, with the Harrington family. Michael Harrington, age 42, a systems analyst who often worked from home. Laura Harrington, age 39, a hospice nurse. Their daughter, Jenna, age 16, a straight-A student at Coldwater High. The Harrington home was a renovated 1,962nd single-story property sitting on 4 acres of forested land, remote but peaceful, the kind of place people in the city dream of escaping to. Neighbors described the family as quiet, polite, and normal in every possible way. They didn't host parties, they didn't have drama, no financial issues, no criminal history. Nothing to indicate the nightmare that was coming. The first anomaly happened on December 7th, 3 days after Michael set up a network of indoor security cameras, something his job had made him overly comfortable with. At exactly 2:14 a.m., the camera in the hallway outside Jenna's bedroom activated itself. According to its internal log, it detected motion, but the footage showed nothing. No shadows, no insects, no glitches. Just an empty hallway lit by the nightlight plugged into the wall. Michael dismissed it as a calibration issue, but the motion detections kept coming. Always at 2:14 a.m. Never earlier. Never later. By the 4th night, one detail changed. The camera picked up audio. It was faint, just a low, static hum, like the sound of someone breathing through an old microphone. Michael showed the clip to Laura, who brushed it off at first, until the audio spiked for a fraction of a second. Playback at 200% volume revealed 2 syllables, distorted but undeniably present. "Nah, come." They couldn't tell if it was Jenna, "Come here," or "Do not come," or something entirely different, only that it was a voice. A voice recorded in a hallway where no one was standing. Still, they tried to stay rational. It was winter. Audio interference happened. But then Jenna started complaining about something far more unsettling. She claimed someone had knocked on her bedroom door 2 nights in a row. Not loud, just a single, gentle knock, like someone checking whether she was asleep. But when she opened the door, the hallway was empty, and both parents were in bed. On the 3rd night, she didn't open the door at all. She simply waited, frozen, staring at the handle as it rattled softly, as if someone was testing whether it was unlocked. She didn't tell her parents this part. Not yet. Because what she heard next didn't feel explainable. Through the door, close enough to be inches from her ear, a man whispered, "Wake up!" When Jenna finally told her parents what she had heard, Michael immediately checked the security system. Every door was locked, every window sealed, no motion alerts, no thermal spikes, nothing that would suggest an intruder. But something was happening, something Michael couldn't explain. The following night, December 12th, Michael stayed awake past 2 a.m., sitting in the living room with his laptop open and the hallway camera pulled up on full screen. He wanted answers. Whether the cause was electrical, environmental, or something he could reason through, he was determined to find it. At 2:14 a.m., the camera activated again. Motion detected. But this time, the footage didn't show an empty hallway. A dark shape, vague and out of focus, moved from right to left in a slow, gliding motion, not walking, not stepping, just drifting, as if its feet never touched the ground. Michael froze, staring at the screen. He rewound it 3 times. Paused frame by frame. But the figure seemed to distort itself between the pixels, like it wasn't actually in the hallway, but somewhere layered over it. He checked the live feed. Nothing there. The hallway was empty. Still, he rushed down the hall, throwing on every light he passed. But the hallway felt colder than usual, cold enough that he could see his breath, even with the heating system running. When he walked back toward Jenna's room, something else caught his attention. Her door, usually covered with stickers and photos, now had a long, vertical smear on it, a pale grey streak, about as tall as a grown man's hand, running straight down the painted wood. He called Jenna over. She swore she didn't put it there. The next morning, Michael reviewed the footage again. And now the distortion was clearer, darker, more defined, like a human silhouette standing just outside Jenna's door. But as soon as the image formed, the recording glitched, jumped, and reset itself. Laura didn't want to believe it. She insisted it had to be a compression issue or a corrupted file, something rational, something that made sense. But then she had her own experience. On December 14th, at exactly 2:16 a.m., she woke up to the familiar soft buzz of the baby monitor, something they still kept in the spare room for visiting relatives. The device hadn't been used in months. It shouldn't have even been powered on. But the screen was lit. And through the speaker, a voice whispered, "She's awake." Laura shot upright in bed. She grabbed the monitor and sprinted down the hallway, flinging open the door to the spare room. The light was off. The crib was empty. The monitor's camera sat untouched in the corner. She turned to leave. But before she stepped back into the hallway, the screen lit up again, this time showing the fuzzy outline of a person standing close to the camera lens. Too close. So close only a portion of their jaw and cheek were visible. Unmoving. Watching. Laura slammed the door and ran. That's when the Harringtons realized this wasn't a wiring issue. It wasn't audio interference. Something in the house wasn't just watching them. It was learning their routines, their schedule, their voices, their daughter's name. And whatever it was, it seemed to always appear at the same time. 2:14 a.m. The precise minute the Harrington house fell silent. By the time December 17th arrived, the Harringtons were sleeping with the lights on. Every night felt heavier than the last, like the air inside the house was thickening, becoming harder to breathe. And the cameras were getting bolder. At 1:52 a.m., nearly 20 minutes before the usual activity, Michael's phone vibrated with a notification. Kitchen camera. Active motion detected. That had never happened before. He opened the feed instantly, expecting maybe a mouse, maybe a curtain moving, anything normal. Instead, the screen showed something that made him stop breathing. A figure stood in the kitchen, perfectly still, facing the camera. It wasn't a shadow this time, not a blur. It was a shape with shoulders, a head, long arms, and a slanted posture, like someone whose spine had been permanently bent forward. But the worst part wasn't the shape. It was the lack of a face. The head flickered with static, as if the camera couldn't render what it was seeing. One moment it was there, the next, gone. The next, stretched unnaturally long, as if the pixels were being pulled apart. Michael whispered, "Laura, wake up, now." When she saw the feed, she covered her mouth with both hands and whispered, "That's in the house. That's in the house." Michael grabbed a flashlight and baseball bat before stepping into the hallway. The moment he crossed the threshold, the kitchen lights shut off every bulb at once, leaving the entire left wing of the house in total darkness. "Stay behind me," he said. They moved slowly toward the kitchen, footsteps echoing through a silence so thick it felt intentional. But halfway there, Michael noticed something ahead of them on the floor. A trail of wet footprints. Bare footprints. Small ones. They led away from the kitchen, straight toward Jenna's room. Michael dropped the flashlight. They sprinted. Jenna's bedroom door was cracked open an inch. Just an inch. Enough to show a sliver of darkness inside. "Jenna!" Laura yelled, pushing the door open. And the room exploded with sound. The baby monitor screeched with static. The hallway camera clicked on. And from somewhere inside the house, The same distorted male voice they'd heard on the recordings whispered, "Don't go." Jenna was on the floor, back pressed against her bed, both hands clamped over her ears. She was shaking violently, tears running down her face. "It was at the door," she sobbed. "He was leaning over the door, looking at me. I could hear him breathing." Michael scooped her up, shouting for Laura to grab the keys. They fled the house without shoes, without coats, without anything beyond what they were wearing. But as they ran down the driveway, something happened that made all three of them stop at once. Every camera in the house, every single one, activated. Through the open front door, they could see the lights on the devices glowing. Recording. Streaming. Tracking. Like something inside the house was watching them leave. And then, the hallway camera, the same one that had started everything, pushed a final notification to Michael's phone. New audio detected. He opened the clip with trembling hands. A single whisper played through the speaker, clearer than it had ever been before. "Come back." The Harringtons didn't stop driving until they reached a small 24-hour gas station off Interstate 81, nearly 30 miles from their home. Inside the car, Jenna cried quietly while Laura gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles. Michael kept checking the rearview mirror, expecting, without knowing why, to see someone following them. When they finally pulled into the gas station, they sat in silence for almost a full minute. No one wanted to be the first to speak. No one wanted to acknowledge what they had just escaped. But the moment Michael stepped out of the car, his phone buzzed again. Another notification. Another impossible one. Front door camera active motion detected. Timestamp: 3:02 a.m. Location: Harrington residence. He tapped the feed, even though every part of him didn't want to. The video loaded. The front door of their house, still standing wide open, creaked further, like someone was gently pushing it from inside. The interior lights flickered in a slow, rhythmic pulse, bright, dim, bright, dim. Then the figure appeared. Not fully, not directly, just a slumped silhouette leaning into the doorway, its head tilted as if it were listening to something outside. Listening for them. Michael dropped the phone into the passenger seat and said, "We're not going back. Not tonight." They checked into a cheap motel nearby. An old place with humming air conditioners and carpet that smelled faintly of bleach. But to them, it was heaven warm, bright, human. They dragged the mattress away from the door, put a chair under the handle, and tried to sleep. But sleep didn't come. At 3:47 a.m., the baby monitor, long powered down, stuffed in a backpack, turned itself on. It made a soft chime, the same one Laura had heard the night she saw the face in the spare room. The screen flickered. Lines of static crawled across the display. Then an image appeared. Not the motel room. Not the crib in the spare room. Not any room they recognized. Instead, the screen showed a dark, unfamiliar hallway, long, narrow, with wooden walls that looked rotted and damp, like part of an old basement or boarded-up institution. Footsteps echoed from somewhere off-screen. Slow. Deliberate. Getting closer. 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 The feed cut to black. The Harringtons didn't sleep at all. The next morning, Michael drove straight to the Coldwater Township Sheriff's Office. He demanded deputies accompany him back to the house. When they arrived, everything was quiet. Every light was off. Nothing moved. But the front door was still open. Deputies swept the house room by room. No signs of forced entry. No footprints. No intruders. Nothing out of place. Except the cameras. Every device had been manually unplugged. Not ripped out. Not damaged. Just gently disconnected. As if someone had turned them off with care. When Michael checked the cloud backups, he found something that chilled him more than the footage itself. Every file recorded after they fled, every video, every audio clip, every motion alert, had been deleted. All except one. A single 9-second audio file. The deputies listened, along with Michael, leaning over his phone. At first, there was static. Soft, almost like wind moving through a long, empty hallway. Then, a breath. Close. Wet. Human. And finally, a whisper. She's mine. Laura grabbed Jenna and said, "We're leaving, now." And they did. They drove straight to Laura's sister's house in Delaware and never returned to Coldwater Township again. Within a week, they put the house up for sale. Within a month, they legally surrendered ownership at a loss. And to this day, the property remains vacant. But the story doesn't end there. Because 3 months later, after the Harringtons had changed their numbers, moved states, and tried to rebuild their lives, Michael received one last notification. A push alert from a device he no longer owned. From a security camera he no longer had access to. From a house he had abandoned. Kitchen camera, active motion detected. Timestamp, 2:14 a.m. The exact minute it all began. When Michael tapped the notification, he expected it to be an error, some leftover cloud glitch tied to the old account. But the feed opened. Slowly. Deliberately. Like whatever was on the other end wanted him to see. The camera showed the Harringtons' old kitchen. Dark. Still. Frozen in time. A thin beam of moonlight cut across the counter, illuminating the dust that had settled since the family fled. Everything was exactly as they left it. The chairs pushed back from the table. The cereal box still open. The half-finished cup of coffee sitting cold by the sink. But then, the cabinet door in the far corner creaked open. Just a few inches. Then a few more. And finally, it swung wide enough for a shadow long, unnatural, stretching across the floor to slide out like ink spilling across tile. The figure stepped forward. Slow. Bent. Its limbs impossibly long. And then it leaned toward the camera so close, the static began to distort the frame, just like before, until all that filled the screen was darkness, movement, and the faint outline of something breathing. Then the audio kicked in. Not a whisper this time. A voice. A full, clear voice that sounded almost excited, almost triumphant. "You left her." Michael's chest tightened. His breath caught. He turned to where Jenna sat on the motel bed beside him, headphones in, unaware of the final message that had just played through his phone. He closed the notification, deleted the app, factory reset the device. But he never told her what he heard. He never told Laura either. Because some messages aren't warnings. Some aren't threats. Some sound like someone is simply stating a fact they believe they can still change. In the months that followed, the Harrington family lived quietly. No more unexplained signals. No late-night whispers. No impossible notifications. But according to a private statement Michael gave to a researcher 2 years later, something did continue. Every night, at exactly 2:14 a.m., the same minute, everything had started. Jenna's bedroom door would creak softly. Just once. Like someone pushing on it. Testing it. And when he'd go to check, thinking she'd opened it in her sleep, he would always find her fast asleep, facing the wall, unaware. Michael said the sound didn't scare him anymore. What scared him was the second sound. The one he heard only when he leaned close enough to put his ear against the door. A breath. Low. Slow. Patient. Followed by a whisper so faint he could barely make out the words. "She's still mine." They moved again shortly after. This time without forwarding addresses, without telling neighbors, and without leaving anything behind, not even furniture. The Coldwater Township house still stands today, unsold, unvisited, avoided even by local teens who usually explore anything abandoned. Neighbors say they sometimes see a faint light flicker inside around 2 a.m., even though the power has been disconnected for years. Others claim they've heard voices near the property line, static-filled, fragmented, like an old baby monitor struggling to connect. But the strangest report came from a utility worker who drove past the house one night during a winter storm. He swore he saw a figure standing behind the front door. Tall, bent, waiting. Until lightning lit up the sky. And the door slowly cracked open. Just an inch. Enough to show darkness behind it. Enough to suggest something inside was still listening. Still watching. Still waiting for the Harringtons to return. If you made it this far, thank you for joining me on this investigation. Cases like this remind us that not every haunting scratches the walls or slams the doors. Some watch. Some learn, some wait, and whatever lived inside that house is still waiting. As always, stay safe, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next haunting case.